Hey guys, welcome to a 2022 edition of Chewing the Fat. And just talking to Dean a minute ago, we haven't done one of these in quite a while. I don't think we've done one since all of last year. So it would have been towards the end of when I finished the Simplr Health protocol in 2020. I was going to say 2021, but it's 2020. So we'd jump on and update everyone onto what we're up to at the moment, how I'm traveling over a year on from finishing the protocol, which is pretty cool. So welcome, Dean. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day to chew the fat with me.
Of course. Yeah, it's good to be back doing these things. I'm like, what are we supposed to do? What do we talk about? But, you mentioned that it's like beyond a year now since you got to your target weight, transitioned, completed phase 4. And I mean, have you gotten fat again? No.
No, is the short answer. I'm actually 2 kilos lighter now than I was when I finished the protocol, which is great now. And there was, a transitioning phase of phase 4 and learning how to maintain that new health set point from then on.
Yeah.
And I remember getting a couple of messages from you and I was posting pictures at gigs of sitting down with a beer or whatever going, stop drinking beer.
A beer's okay. It was just, I was seeing it too often.
Stop going back to phase 1. Manage yourself on phase 4. All right.
Yeah.
But what's been great?
I mean, look, the whole process, it's a lifestyle transformation. So if you look back now, like what can you see habitually just is in existence now? What's been taken out of existence? Like what really has shifted for you in terms of managing your own self in your life as a lifestyle?
2 things. One, I set up my environment to support that healthy lifestyle, being on board with you and Simplr Health. I can't be on these calls and coaching calls, or if I see clients in person and being 10 kilos heavier, it's just
that's pretty obvious with you because your head just becomes really round.
Yeah, I see those Facebook memories and I'd run into my wife and just go, look at this, look at the size of my head. And I'll send them to you and you just go, that just looks wrong now, dude. So there's that side of it for one. And 2, just coming at it like, if I'm a healthy person now, do I really need whatever it is I'm going to search out as far as food or drink or whatever goes? Do I really need that? Is that beneficial to me? Or is it just something I'm used to doing while I'm doing, watching TV, or while I'm at someone's house, or while I'm bored, or while I'm doing those sort of things? And generally the answer is no. I don't need that. Are they going to benefit me? No. So, not that I don't have, things now and again. I was sitting at your joint the other day eating chorizo sausage off the barbecue. So it's not like I don't get to enjoy things anymore, but I really have taken on being responsible for doing that for the other days during the week, which is, with my son having a bakery in Maitland we see once a week, there's enough temptation there for me to practice the management of that. But because I normally resist the scales, right? And that's how I got to 24 kilos overweight anyway. I didn't even have scales in the house. And even after finishing phase 4 and sort of getting in the ballpark of being able to manage it, it really took something to go, just get on the scales and get a smack in the face of reality, either way, good or bad, of what's actually happening. Because I'll justify, how my clothes fit now. I'll look in the mirror till the cows come home. I obviously did before because I didn't have much weight to lose until I started losing it and went, I've got 24 kilos to lose. And then was quite surprised, a year on after, I was like, oh, crap. I'm a kilo down on what I was when I finished phase 3. I must be doing something right.
Yeah.
So, and then, a couple of months later, I'm another kilo down. So it's been good. And it sort of takes the pressure off you too, of like, it's not a constant struggle now of, am I doing this right? Or am I, there's just, not that it's handled and I don't have to worry about it anymore, but there's not the concern for it every day. I'm just in a routine now of this is what I eat and when I eat and how I eat and how I train and exercise and stuff. And then there's days where I go up to the bakery and eat like an idiot.
But you can be responsible for that, and it's intentional, and then you're not doing it every day. So think, there was that question that you asked yourself. It's like, do I really need this? Is it going to benefit me? Another question to ask, I mean, that's great as well, but you could take it another step forward. If the overarching context is one of performance, you can ask yourself, is what I'm about to eat going to support my performance the rest of this day / the rest of this week? Right? And you know what it's like when you eat certain foods, then it impacts your energy levels. It impacts how you feel internally, your gut health. Some people experience bloating. Some people get really tired. They get the brain fog. They know if they eat certain foods, then they're very irritable at certain times of the day. And so you got to kind of look forward and plan all of that as well. And, when I have my daughter and she's at school, I don't eat carbohydrates at lunch, right? And I'm not in a weight loss structure. I don't eat carbs at the lunch, because if I do, it's going to impact my energy levels by the time that I pick her up after school.
Yeah.
And when my energy levels aren't the best, I don't know what bloody mood she's going to be in, and it just rarely goes well. So I just manage my performance as a parent.
I've noticed that specifically in the days that because I generally don't eat, cake or sweets or pies or things like that up at the actual bakery. I'll bring them home and eat them the next day, because when I was doing that up there, we drive up in the midday and come back at night and then eat whatever's there for dinner as well, which is normally some sort of rice noodles or rice itself or other carbs. The drive home was just hell. It's like halfway home, I'm just like, oh my God, I just want to go. And I'm trying to go cranking the music, and Lan's going, the aircon's freezing. And I was like, you don't care, got to stay awake.
Yeah.
And since I've stopped that and just bring whatever I'll make Tuesday, whatever I'll eat. And even then it's just not worth the hassle. I've noticed once I've set my body up to get an objective view of what's actually happening with those foods, damn, it's a struggle. I mean, I'll still do it now and again, but it's a struggle those next day or two with stopping myself from going to the fridge and the cupboard all the time, because now I just start wanting more food. And B, just as you said, with that puffy sort of lethargic feeling it's just like, is it worth it just to eat a pie and a cake? Sometimes.
These things that you're bringing up, these topics, they're not so trivial, because when you consider the number of road accidents, right? So there are certain activities you're participating in, driving for one, and people aren't present. They're just not there. I mean, how often have you gotten in the car and you've driven and you can't remember the past 5 kilometers? You're in your head thinking about stuff, you're tired, whatever. And then these long haul drives, now that, you can cross borders and so forth, you can get back to doing some of that interstate travel, which I enjoy. I like getting in the car and just driving to Victoria, and, that's where I grew up, and we go visit family down there. But I did this trip once, and I put myself into ketosis, a couple of days before a long drive like that. And I managed my diet vigilantly. And then I don't need to eat. I don't need stimulants. I don't need caffeine. I don't get tired. If I do experience my thinking drifting a little bit, I'll have water, electrolytes, and branched chain amino acids. And that takes me the whole drive down to Victoria, and I'm fine. And I get there and I'm refreshed. I've got energy when I see my family. I don't just want to slump on a couch somewhere. And I'm totally present with the people that I put in the effort to go and travel to see.
Yeah.
Now, I did one trip like that. I drove down to Victoria that way. However, I drove back and ate some donuts exiting Bendigo. They have this caravan with these hot jam donuts. They've been there forever, and I grew up, with them. And I just thought, oh, let's get some. And I wasn't going to eat it straight away, and I couldn't resist it because it was bloody well there. And that's the problem. Accessibility is not your friend. So if it's just right there. So I ate a donut, And of course, what happens is you spike your blood glucose levels, and then your insulin, your pancreas just releases this big bolus dose of insulin. It brings your blood glucose levels back down, but then it brings it down too far. So you experience this crash. Then I'm like, start getting tired. And then I need a coffee. And then, right, and you go driving 9 hours, which turned into, I think that trip turned into 11 and a half hours because I had to stop more frequently.
Yeah.
Right. Plus you consuming stimulants like caffeine, which is a diuretic, and then you've got to urinate more regularly on the trip. It just ruins the whole drive. So
I'm astounded how I notice the days I'll have, you know, I think a couple of Mondays ago, I came home, and the Monday night after I got home, I had same thing about the supply thing. I thought if I keep these in the fridge, I'm just going to eat them each day. So I'm just going to smash both of them now. I ate both of them. My heart was noticeably pounding harder. I was hotter. I was just like, this is ridiculous. Just from eating 2 sugary slice things, it was just a massive difference in how I felt immediately. And of course, I was just half hour later, I was just knocked out.
Yeah. Well, that's you being really in tune with your own biological signals now. Yeah. So that machine of yours has been fully calibrated, and you've really learned how to experience and interpret and act appropriately to these biological signals. And you don't have all that background noise dampening the signal, so you can really hear it. So it's brilliant. And you're up to big stuff. I mean, you know, I think even just what we said, I think we need to impact the transport industry and make a difference to the health and well-being of truck drivers. I mean, that could make an enormous difference to the safety of all on the roads. Yeah. And the health, obviously, of the truck drivers themselves. You know, you just got to consider the various stops along the way on any long haul drive. They don't serve the best foods. So it's kind of, you know, it's always high refined carbohydrate type foods, breads and so forth, sugary drinks. And then they become reliant. They're overweight. They got metabolic syndrome. And then they become reliant on these stimulants and energy drinks and so forth. And it's not good for their heart or their brain. So, you know, we should step in and see what difference we can make there.
Amongst other things. But yeah, I mean, there's a truck stop just down the road from my place, and there's nothing healthy there.
Pies,
you know, Kransky sausages in batter and chicken rolls and, you know, all that sort of stuff. But the worst thing I had yesterday up at the bakery was it was just a chicken schnitzel roll with salad. But even that roll, I noticed 10 minutes after eating it, I was like, I'm noticeably boom, 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 boom. I was like, wow, that's insane.
Yeah. Well, when you consider what's in it, right? So you've got the refined carbohydrates in the white bread. It offers no nutritional value. And then you've got the chicken's okay, but then it's crumbed and deep fried.
Yeah.
Okay. In some kind of seed oil, presumably, right? So then, you know, that combination ain't great either. So you're eating fried foods, white breads, and then we kid ourselves by having some little tiny layer of color in there, like some lettuce or tomato, or whatever it is. Right?
It was salad.
Yeah, exactly.
Chicken and salad. Come on, how unhealthy can it be?
So, I mean, look, I've got to acknowledge you. This past year, it's been extraordinary. Obviously, you know, you're working with me at Simplr Health, and you're very much running the show now. So that's really contributed enormously to you. I mean, to me, sorry, and to you. It's given you something to sink your teeth into, other than these schnitzel rolls, right? And you took on some study, and you become a qualified nutritionist along the way. For all our, you know, people watching this, I call Trevor Professor Rogers now. It's almost gotten to the point where he comes to me with questions about certain technical questions, some aspect of nutritional biochemistry and cell biology, you know, all these kind of systems, biological systems. And it's at that point now, Trevor, where I'm like, I don't know, your understanding is as good as mine. I'll get, you know, And we're looking at stuff together now, which is really, really cool for me to have that kind of a partner. And what you've done, and all of, you know, the people that I've coached and you've coached, I mean, you've coached heaps and heaps of people and made an enormous difference to people now along your journey. It's not like you waited until you arrived somewhere before you contributed to a great number of people. What got you to where you're at is you kept contributing. And, you know, that speaks volumes of who you are and the size of your heart. And I just really acknowledge you on behalf of everyone that you've made a difference to for committing yourself like that.
Yeah.
You know, and that you did that, it's freed me up to do what I love doing as well, which is networking with some of the, you know, brilliant minds that I can connect with, everyone, and working up projects and partnerships and seeing how we can make more of a difference. Everyone from Dr. James Mukey, who was the 2020 Australian of the Year. He's now been made the Lieutenant Governor of South Australia.
Oh, wow.
So it's an even, you know, it really adds to his credibility and the opportunity we have to impact metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes in this country and globally as well.
Yeah, wow.
And then, you know, Corey Cunningham, Dr. Corey Cunningham, who's the Deputy Medical Director of the Australian Olympic team, joined the Simplr Health clinical advisory team. And he's just been an enormous contribution and opened up another avenue of where we can head with our offerings and what difference we can make. And you're working with me to train and develop a new coach that we've brought on board, Emma Nedov, and I'm going to do a little chewing the fat like this with her probably next week now. And I'll introduce her to everyone on Facebook. I mean, she's just extraordinary, 25 years of age, ex-Olympic, not Olympic, world champion gymnast. She didn't go to the Tokyo Games because of COVID messed up the qualifiers and she didn't get to go. But she was 5 times beam champion, Australian beam champion, and she's known as the beam queen. And so I think it works in really well with her story, and I can't wait for people to hear her story because she really is this 25-year-old, gorgeous, athletic, unbelievably disciplined person. But after she retired from gymnastics, had a real downward trend with regards to her health and gained a lot of weight. And, you know, so we'll be able to detail some of why that happened and then the difference that I was able to make with her to lose that weight, restore hormonal balance, and really bring back that self-confidence and that aliveness. And the manner in which she went through the protocol was just so damn inspiring. And obviously she experienced the difference it made in her life, and her family have acknowledged me for that. So, you know, I think she's just going to be a phenomenal asset to us at Simplr Health, and more importantly, to the clients that get to work with her and the people that she can contribute to and relate more with as well. I mean, there's going to be a lot of, you know, females and in particular younger females that need help like this, that maybe won't necessarily have the confidence to be coached by a couple of guys like us, but will engage with Emma. And so I'm looking forward to being able to make that kind of a difference to a broader demographic, inclusive of, you know, the younger women. So, you know, that's super exciting as well.
It is, yeah.
So what else? So, you know, you've really made all that possible.
Well, I mean, you know, none of it would be possible without you either. It was funny because I just had it's funny you say that and how you said it, because on Facebook the other day, I think I shared it on Facebook, I had a memory come up from something you'd said or posted before about just, you know, some people wait for the end of the week till Friday or the end of the year till they go on holidays and all that sort of thing. And, you know, it's true. And I've learned that along, you know, a few years ago when I've, you know, first met you and was getting coaching from you back then. And it's why I'm, you know, married today. And why I'm here now is just there is no time or right time to get stuff done, especially when you're up to something that's going to benefit other people. Is just now. And, you know, thank you too for having the confidence and pushing me to get out of my comfort zone and, you know, just take on new stuff and having me be able to do it. It's been, you know, sure, it's been scary as crap sometimes, but it's like, well, do you think I can do it?
You know, I mean, that fear. I had someone, the recently elected deputy mayor of Fairfield, City Council, and she reached out to me and she asked me to be part of an online forum just to assist in creating different conversations around COVID. And you know, I think that there's this real concern around the fear that people are experiencing and that's being generated, and people are using terms like fear mongering and all of that. I think the reality is people, even well before the pandemic, you know, we didn't need a pandemic to be fearful. I mean, to be human is to have fear.
Yeah.
So the game is not to get to a point where there's no longer any fear. The game is to learn how to be responsible for the fear and which you addressed earlier, like what's actually happening in front of you, and not some story about how it should be, right? You know, and anytime you're relating to life like it should be some way other than what it is, then you're not dealing with life. You're indulging in some fantasy, right? So where the fear comes from is often just this world of uncertainty. And in a sea of uncertainty, you know, what gives you power is at the very least creating the certainty of who you are and what your life is for. And there's an experience of being grounded and solid when that happens, when you take a context on like that. Otherwise, you're like a leaf in the wind and you get blown that way or this way, depending on the circumstances, and you're always reacting, right? So people are almost always afraid anyway. I mean, it doesn't take much. This is just an exaggeration of what's already there. So there'll never be a point where you're totally without fear. What there is to create courage. And it's not like I haven't had any fears. I mean, I've had my own battles as well. I mean, I've shared a little bit, not much, but, you know, I mean, last May I had a head knock to the head and I had a concussion and whiplash, and it's taken a long time to recover from that. And I've thrown everything at it. And that's the beauty of Simplr Health. It's not just a diet program. That's what people need to understand. It's an environment, a conversational environment where people can be empowered and gain access to the latest science and expertise. And that's what I was able to do within this environment as well. I mean, it's quite a phenomenal experience for me that I get to benefit from that conversational environment that I created for myself, and I get to benefit from it. And so the team just really wrapped their arms around me, and I got supported by Dr. Eric Hansen, who's one of our clinical advisors, and I consult out of his clinic in Gladesville in Sydney, and Dr. Kristen Willemere, who's a neurobiologist in Los Angeles, and she was able to provide a lot of support and scientific know-how. And then also Dr. Joseph Maroon. And then what it also did is it stretched me to create new connections. And in the face of what I was dealing with, all I wanted to do was hide out and isolate myself and not interact with people because I just didn't have the energy. The lethargy was just extraordinary. I've never experienced life like that before, and I had some associated depression and anxiety. I had spatial disorientation issues. I dinged my car a couple of times, and then I lost confidence in driving for a few weeks. And I'd experienced moments of I would just black out. I had insomnia, headaches. Gosh, what else? I mean, the full gamut. It was an amazing experience to go through all of that and still kept pushing. If there's one thing that I'm certain of, if we're going to have any real impact on improving health outcomes for the citizens of this country, it really is creating a context of personal accountability for one's well-being. And I really had to take that on myself, and no one was going to do it for me. I had to do it and I had to show up to my, my sessions every week, and, and my physiotherapist, I had to see him every 2 weeks. I saw Eric every week. I was getting lasers into my brain to help excite those neurons, and I was measuring my brain activity periodically to know whether or not it was improving and when I'd gone backwards. I'm getting into the hyperbaric oxygen chamber every week. And if I overexert myself, it triggers what we call metabolic overload, and it causes an inflammatory response, and I feel the effects of it. Yeah. So I've had to learn to regulate my activity levels and know when to step back. I just didn't have what I had like a year ago to keep pushing myself. And, and what that meant was I had to learn how to trust you more and trust others more, and with my babies that I created. And that was a whole breakthrough for me as well. So it was a huge learning curve. I mean, and I think given what I had to discover for myself, I was in the trenches, similar to our clients, working through whatever needed to be worked through. And the number of people, when I look back at how active we've been, the number of people that we've been able to contribute and make a difference to tripled. It has tripled in that time frame. Yeah. And and our scope and reach, and the network has just expanded dramatically. And now I'm consulting to. You sent me a podcast this morning, and it was detailing some information on everything from growth hormone, anti-aging, metabolic effects surrounding insulin, to regenerative medicine, including exosomes and stem cells. And it's just fascinating that I'm kind of working in all those areas and consulting to a leading Australian stem cell company that's manufacturing exosomes. And we're looking to utilize these products in treatment of, things from long COVID. And we've got a study going at the moment overseas with inhaled exosomes. And what else are we doing? Looking at skin rejuvenation and wound healing, and also for burns, skin burns, etc. A number of different things. It's very, very exciting. And I think the end game for that really is how can we impact aging overall. So, and not just slow it down, but potentially stop it, potentially reverse some damaging effects that have, occurred in people's bodies, and give them that rejuvenated sense of self as well. So, the quality of life.
The first part of that, as you mentioned on that podcast, is getting your diet sorted.
It's foundational. Absolutely. I mean, it's silly that we eat like crap. I mean, let me put it like this. So my cousin, many years ago, she married this gentleman by the name of Master Yu Guifeng, and he's Chinese, and his last name, Feng, F-E-N-G, he's from that family lineage from which feng shui began, right? And he's revered by the Chinese, and he was originally brought to Australia by, I think it was La Trobe and Melbourne universities, brought him to Australia. So just an extraordinary man. And he shared with me this story one time of a client of his, very wealthy client, who did everything that he said and feng shuied his house and his home and everything. He built the house on the mountain, and it was facing the right way, and all this kind of did everything. And he comes to Master Feng and he says, I did all of that all these years, and I've spent all this money, and I still got cancer. And Master Feng said, yeah, but you didn't give up smoking. Right. Come on. There's some things that you just have to take out of existence. You just got to stop doing, and you got to develop some habits. And yeah, it's hard because you wired yourself with really bad habits, and you got to take responsibility for that. And then it takes something to shift it over a period of time. Everyone expects a quick fix, and you can't vaccinate yourself against obesity. No, when people lose the weight, they're not fixed. It's like if you start being sloppy with your day-to-day activities again, you'll put the weight back on.
Yeah.
You know, so
We're
kudos to you that you didn't
focus on the performance outcomes, where everyone's just, you know, that just reminded me of it then. Like they're just focused on doing some things, and then the outcome turns out to be, you know, and just getting absorbed by the outcome, but not so fussed on the actual performance side of it.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
you know, that's where the gold is, obviously. And just, it's like I said to a client the other day, it's like an Olympic runner saying, you know, I did everything this week that I was supposed to do. Yeah, I missed one training session, but it was only one. And in the other ones, I only did 150 sprints instead of 100. No, 100 sprints instead of 150 because I was tired those days. But I can't work out why I've dropped half a second over 100 meters. I can't.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They just laughed. I went, of course. Forget this. Start getting focused on what you're doing.
Yeah, there's I can't remember what it's called, maybe Bounce or something. So there's a book that talks about the number of hours of practice that you put in really determines. They use an example of like a violinist. Like, what's the difference between a virtuoso versus someone who performs in an orchestra versus a violin teacher or a professor and a teacher, right? It's just same commitment to the craft, right? That, like, it's not like they're not committed, and same passion and love for the craft and the music, but the difference is the number of hours that one was willing to practice.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what makes the difference. And, you know, the really sad thing is, which you will have experienced by now, I'm sure, is you coach someone, they lose a truckload of weight, and then all of these amazing things start happening in life for them, right? Because now they're confident, they're more willing to participate in the areas of life where previously they kind of pulled back on their participation, they hid away from. And now they're getting out there, they're accomplishing things, they're getting in relationships, they're starting businesses, and life gets really full and busy. And now their health takes a back seat again, and they stop being cause in the matter or responsible for those basic habits that got them to that point in the first place. What's even more tragic is when they don't commit to completing the entire journey, which includes stabilization. They think that they've arrived somewhere, and, you know, and then some time passes, they take themselves away from the coaching structure. You know, that's not so dissimilar to when you're incomplete with a parent. You know, when everyone's got parent issues, right? And when you're incomplete with your parents, you're not talking to them, you're pissed off about it, you've got some disempowering story about the source of your life, it's going to have an impact on your life. What kind of relationships you have, how far you go, your experience of life, etc. I don't care what people think about that, how they judge what I just said. I mean, that's just every time, like, I see it, that it's always there, right? So it's like being unplugged from the source of power. And if you're unplugged from the source of your life, that's going to have an impact. If you produce these results, these transformational results on a particular journey, say, for example, with us, and take yourself out of that coaching structure and stop empowering that structure before it comes to completion, then you're shooting yourself in the foot, because you haven't learned, obviously, what it takes to sustain it. If you're willing to quit, you're not going to be willing to sustain it for the rest of your life. And it's always like when people come back and they go, oh, I've put on another 10 kilos, or I've put on another 15 kilos. And why? Because they decided at some point, oh, I know how to do it now. So if I ever do put on some weight, I know what to do to get back. But how hard is it? Especially when you don't have the urgency that you did way back at the beginning when you were 30 kilos overweight, and the threat there was loss of quality of life. Now you know what to do, you know everything, you've had an experience of it. But then when you think you gain the weight, I think how tough phase one is, right? I mean, you kind of go through the journey, but then you think about doing it all over again. It's like, no, I'd rather just stay at this weight now, right? Ought to be a deterrent enough, but it's just not. those daily little habits. It's like, oh, just this little treat, and oh, I've done so well, I deserve this. And it's consistent. It's not the 2 kilograms of ice cream that you smash in one go that ruins everything. It's those little moments that you grant yourself permission every day, day after day, over time, it all adds up. So, you know, it's a big deal when someone gets to that ideal body weight, transitions with integrity, stabilizes, and does what it takes, keeps themselves inside of a committed structure over a longer period of time, and now it's just ingrained.
Yeah. And even then, it takes something in that last section of it to really have it ingrained and pull through when you're on your own. You know, I mean,
that's the relationship to oneself. It's like being in a relationship to another person for a long period of time. That takes effort. It takes nurturing. I mean, Valentine's Day is coming up, right? And we have these special days in the annual calendar where we get to celebrate key relationships in our life, like Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's Day with an intimate partner, etc. But how often do we celebrate ourselves like that and acknowledge the gift that we are to ourselves, and not just leave it to one day, but imagine having a lifetime where you get to nourish and nurture this gift that we have, you know, that really does provide a certain degree of respect and honor for the extraordinary opportunity it is to be alive.
Yeah.
And when you honor that, then, you know, you want to get up to big things. You want to get up to stuff that makes a difference. If not out in the world, then at least in your local community or even within your family, you know, and it stops being so much about you.
Yeah.
Right? And
things I notice coaching, but when it's just about them and what they're doing and how good they look or whatever, it never ends well. It's always the people that get out and, you know, create that environment for themselves and keep sharing what they're doing. Because that's, looking back on it, it's the amount of times I spoke and reinforced what I was doing for myself, not convincing other people of what to do or how to do it or whatever. It was actually just, you know, constantly reaffirming for myself what I'm doing and why and how it works and how it's going to last and all that sort of thing. That by doing those things along the way, then just make it so much easier at the end.
Yeah. I mean, your journey is amazing because you've just contributed so much to so many people. And in doing so, you have to keep yourself on the hook, as you've alluded to being well and practicing, you know, what you're coaching them in. And, you know, you really did, to a large degree, box yourself in. You know, that's another way of saying putting yourself on the hook. Right. So you put yourself on the hook and this benefits you. Yeah. It benefits you, your life. And I mean, you know, there's what I know. I mean, you've been able to earn a living out of this and experience being able to make that kind of a difference to people. I mean, you've had some extraordinary outcomes with your clients that, you know, you're coaching and what you're building and developing and what you've learned. I mean, you're doing everything from the rebuild of the website. For people who haven't gone to our new website, Simplr.Health, I mean, you know, Trevor, along with a dear friend of ours, Matthew Brennan, he's really provided that sort of a lot of the project management. You've worked very closely with him and our designer, Stephen Young. It's just been extraordinary. And you've overseen all of that. I mean, that's something that most, you know, I don't know, you were tuning motorbikes and now you're doing all of this sort of stuff in a pandemic and, you know, earning a living. But why don't you share, like, what contribution has it made to your life taking this kind of stand for contributing to others? Well,
I was just saying to one of those clients yesterday on a call, we had a family dinner at the restaurant the other during the week for Lunar New Year, and you know, they're very straightforward. I think we've had this conversation before about what you'll look like at any given time. So when I was overweight, there was no problem in I'd see them, you know, once every month or so, and I'd walk into the restaurant and just get told, "You're fat." Thanks. Didn't think I was that bad. Yeah, you're very big now. Yeah, thanks. But now it's the opposite. and they're not used to seeing me because they don't see me that often, and they're not used to seeing me all the time, and they just it looked better before, and I just that's why I keep showing my wife. I go, really? There's me before. Do I look better then? She's like, no, I don't get it either. It's like, yeah. But yeah, sit there listening to it's not right. You know, you're a skippy, you're an Aussie, you're supposed to be bigger than all of us. And, you know, now you're the smallest one at the table. Oh, that sort of thing's been great. But it's been, I said to the guy on the call, this is the healthiest I've been since I can remember. Not just outside, but inside as well, you know, and probably mentally as well. It's, not that there was ever a massive drama on any front besides a couple of big accidents, whatever, but just how I feel within myself's been fantastic. And it's provided an environment for me to be able to contribute that to other people, which just isn't there unless you go through and do what I've done along the way. And just, you know, actually living what we're preaching.
Yes.
It's just been massive. You know, I'm setting myself up to, you know, Lan's 10 years older than I am. So at some stage, you know, in the hopefully distant future, I'm going to have to be looking after her at some point. So I can't be dealing with medical issues and overweight and being pushed around myself. I've got to be on my game to be able to do that when the time's ready to do. So it's made a massive difference to even the whole lifestyle thing. There's mates I've got where the first thing we'd do when we saw each other was beers. And, you know, there'd be days where we'd go, look, we're just going to go easy today. We'll just have I'm just going to bring 1 6-pack out into the table. And then half a beer later, we're a mess. And even those mates of mine now, sometimes we'll have a beer now and again. Other times is, you want a beer? No, not really. Okay, cool. Yeah, what do we want to drink? I'll make a coffee. Yeah, let's have coffee. It's just sweet. And it's not just me that's happening to, that's also now with them when I'm with those people as well. So, you know, it was dealing with, you know, getting out of the bike game. And this worked both ways as well. You know, I was tuning motorbikes for 20 years and it was pretty much, you know, who I was. There's some people know me only through those channels and don't know I do anything else and know me by my nickname in those circles and all that sort of thing. And I remember you saying how, you know, what's it going to take for you to get out of that business and just come help me full time? We worked out and I messaged you and said, well, I thought this has got to freak him out as much as it is me, surely. Sold the dyno, dude. I'm out of the game.
I did. It was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Now I have to expand. And it's like I have to ensure that, you know, that's
a big lesson as well, because it's just like shit works out in the end. Why would I get so invested in what it has to look like and what I've done in the past? And, you know, I remember I had that conversation with you standing in the wardrobe, pulling out the shirts for the bike that I had, you know, made like a uniform type thing to throw them out. And there's that immediate pull to go, oh, do I really want to throw them out? They're like part of my life. They're a freaking shirt in the bin.
You know, all those old clothes. Oh, this is what we've got to do, Trevor. It just occurred to me. Wow, there's an extraordinary human being down in Melbourne. He created a business called Beekeeper, and they take discarded clothes and turn them into bags and stuff like that, school bags, etc. Right. And they raise money. They do sell these bags, etc., to raise money to build schools in like Cambodia and places like that, right? We should set up a partnership. I'm always interested in all the strategic partnerships.
All the old clothes, right? People that lose the weight.
Exactly.
Donated to this, yes.
Let's do that. I mean, it's got to be an impact in the world. Like I've always wanted to create some kind of a structure where people's lost centimeters could equate to a difference being made in the world, whether it be a child being fed. I mean, a child dies from malnutrition every 6 seconds in the world. I mean, that's the population of Singapore, gone every year. Unnecessarily, they're not necessarily starving either. They're malnourished. And so they have suppressed immune systems and they die from things like bacterial dysentery, et cetera. So there's that, there's, education and literacy, especially amongst females, has the biggest impact on health outcomes in developing countries.
Yeah, right.
Right? It's not more medicines, it's not more hospitals, it's literacy and empowering females and women, young women, right? And giving them the capacity to create bigger futures that they're inspired about for themselves. So anywhere where we can kind of connect up these dots and give people an opportunity to handle their own health and well-being and make a difference in the world as well, as I'm up for it. So that's a good one. I'm going to pursue that one. That's great. And if they're bigger clothes, so there's more material for him to work with.
Exactly.
Right?
We just got to be careful we don't promote people getting big so we can contribute.
They can just go buy the bags, right? That contributes too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. And this is what there are clients that, there's you, there's Emma, there's also Dr. Joanna Winchester, who's just contributed enormously, and she's an expert in the education system, and she's deputy head of education at Australian Catholic University, and she's created not only improved health for herself, but there's what are you going to get up to now? What kind of a life can you create? And this is where I know you do too. We love coaching people in just as personal performance coaches. Once health has been restored, now you've got to build a life that's so big and inspiring and compelling that you'll just never let this skin bag get out of shape again, because what you're up to matters too much. And you're so engrossed and inspired by what you're up to, and you're loving your life. And for people to not only discover that they can love themselves again, but to create a life that they love also is just the biggest thrill for me. And, she's created a leadership academy called Agile, the Academy of Global Impact, the Academy for Global Impact and Leadership through Ethics. And they've got their first event with the new intake of students next week, I think. The next week or the week. I mean, it's unbelievably exciting. I'm really, really thrilled for her. And she's on the edge all the time, challenging herself, bumping up against all those barriers and always having to break through. And, it's just extraordinary. And that's the real joy of being able to restore health. You don't lose the weight just for the sake of losing the weight. It's when health is restored, when vitality is expanded, what could your life be about? What could you get up to?
Yeah.
And, whenever I go, I want to be able to look back and go, wow, look at not only the difference we made to all those people, but look at how we were able to set them up to make a bigger difference in the world. And that's just such joy. Yeah.
Something you said before, though, reminded me of the partnerships and the advisors and all that sort of thing, and the access to some of the biggest experts we've got. And it just reminded me of one of my friends who was, what was that about? I can't quite remember the details, where she had an issue with either her or a boyfriend. And within like 10 minutes, you had on a call either Kristen in the US or someone else, and had sorted the whole thing out for her in like 10 minutes, hooking her up to the right people. With Nat, do you remember that?
I can't remember, man. I get so many.
I just remember you ringing me going, how cool is this? Your friend just rang me and said she's dealing with, I've got a memory like a sieve. So she's dealing with this, that, and the other. I went, give me 1 second. And I got on the phone to this person and that person and this person, and they all said blah, blah, blah. So now she's going to do this and sort it out. Would have taken her like months to get it.
That happens so often. I think was it Nat?
Yeah.
Nat, right. Yeah. That was a good one. So that was Nat reached out to me. A partner had damaged his back and saw a doctor, and then he was being referred to a surgeon, an orthopedic surgeon or something. and the suggestion of surgery. And so I said, just do me a favor, send me the reports. And that's right, within 20 minutes, I remember that. Yeah, within 20 minutes, I'd sent the reports to, Eric, Dr. Eric, Angela's a physio, 2 sports medicine physicians, and 2 neurosurgeons, one here in Australia and one in the US. And they all came back to me within 24 hours. And I was able to relay all of that information back to Nat, to pass on to a partner, and saved him so much money, and time with all the various appointments that he would have had to have gone through. And then he was able to get the appropriate treatment straight away and get it sorted without surgery. This is the thing that I'm privileged with, is having that network. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to create Simplr Health, because, the average person doesn't have that kind of scope and reach and the ability and how to ask the right questions and to whom. And, so when people come to me and it's become a little bit overwhelming, but, I'm building it out where I can spread the load. But I love it. And look, those kind of things, especially when people are already members of Simplr Health, I don't charge for any of that. I mean, that's just our kind of gift. And that's what I mean about us being an environment in which people can be empowered and have access to the science and the experts in a way where ordinarily they wouldn't have. I love that.
And they are.
We're kind of building something like that,
They're the guns in their field. They're just...
Oh, yeah, the best. Yeah, absolutely.
Chiropractor.
Yeah, absolute best.
Jimmy said was great or whatever. They're they all know each other or have heard of each other or are now forming relationships with each other, and they know damn well they're dealing with the best in each other's relative fields. It's great.
Yeah. And connecting the experts together and supporting their relationships. So just today, for example, Dr. Olivia Leslar, she's another clinical expert who's joined our advisory team. And she's a phenomenon of an integrative functional medicine doctor. And she's doing a lot of work in terms of neuro rehab. And, she's the consulting GP that works with Singulum. And Singulum is a neuro rehab clinic. And they work with all kinds of issues from post-neurosurgery, post-stroke rehabilitation, even depression, things like that, right? So a lot of brain focus, and there's, Charlie Teo's involved in that. A lot of people know Charlie Teo is a neurosurgeon, gets himself into a lot of controversial situations. And, some people, there's a love-hate thing there, but, there's no denying that the guy's brilliant and can contribute a lot. But, today I introduced Dr. Olivia, to Thomas Roman. And Thomas Roman is another expert advisor to Simplr Health, and he developed what's called the Roman method, and you've had an experience of it. And I know it's made a difference to you, and I'm doing a lot of work with him as well to correct how my biomechanics work.
Yeah.
And, you may notice, those that are watching, I'm not sitting down, I'm at a standing desk. And one of the key elements to ensuring people can not only lose the weight, but keep it off for the rest of their life is the ability to spend more time upright, on your feet, walk more, stand more. And we've always known that there was a relationship between a sedentary lifestyle and weight gain. We just weren't clear about the actual mechanism. And there's some recent scientific evidence that suggests that there's a feedback mechanism in our nervous system that communicates to the brain depending on how much weight our legs need to carry. So the more time you spend upright on your feet, the less likely you are to eat excess calories. So when you spend a lot of time sitting, right, and you haven't got that pressure, that weight on your legs, you don't get that same feedback inhibition of your eating habits, and you're more likely to consume excess calories the more you sit.
Yeah, right.
So why don't people spend more time standing? Well, I had to discover it for myself. Our biomechanics aren't set up to operate efficiently. So it's exhausting, and oftentimes it's it's uncomfortable all the way through to it's painful for people, right? So how do we retrain how our brain manages our body and move in a dynamic way that's functionally correct? And even for me, I mean, what I was doing, if I just stand here sideways, I would put a lot of weight on the balls of my feet, my hips would come forward, I'd arch my back, my head would hang forward. And this was putting a lot of pressure on my back and neck. And so just a simple, my brain had to figure this out. Tom didn't tell me. He just put me in certain environments where my brain had to solve the problem. And now I'm more and more, I put the weight through the heels and I engage my core, activate my glutes. And it's a great experience now to discover that I do actually have a bum. You know, it's not just flat because I'm Asian, it's flat because it wasn't activating those muscles. So they didn't get stimulated to grow. So, and now I'm more upright, and I'm, you know, now the issues are showing up in other places in my body, and I'm working through that as my whole body adjusts. So, I mean, today, for example, I had some, that's not a tattoo, that's strapping tape that I've got on my shoulder. Yes.
What?
Yeah, not a tattoo. That's strapping tape because I had some inflamed tendon and some bursitis, and I couldn't lift my arm up. And I went and saw Tom today, and he put me through some exercises and some retraining exercises, and now I can lift my arm like I couldn't do this earlier today. Couldn't do it. Right? It's kind of fascinating for me now as I'm doing it. It's like pretty amazing. So that movement aspect, movement is as important as the nutrition. You know, and that's a huge component now that we're working into the Simplr Health protocol and making available with all these movement experts for our clients. So that's a huge value add, and I can't wait for us to really develop that out further and start generating some, you know, sort of movement outcomes with our clients. And I think one of the pinnacles of movement is gymnastics, and that's why it's so thrilling for me and you to have Emma Nedov as part of the team as well. And
for sure.
You know, so
it's really
big things to come.
It never occurred to me until I went and saw Tom that no one ever teaches you how to move properly. There's always focus on what to eat and how to eat and when to eat and all that stuff, but no one, it just sort of, you've survived doing that the way you're doing it, so keep doing it. And I remember when I saw him and was explaining to you what he was saying to me about how I walked and the different exercises he got me to do and what showed up on those, and straight away it was just like you said, no wonder your knees were screwed.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly right. Exactly right. But people just have it that like that's the way I walk. Like you were born to walk that way. And it's been a really interesting process retraining my brain on how to actually walk.
Yeah.
And my lower back's way better than it was. Not that I'm doing, because you know, I used to approach it with like exercises to do from my back and do things that would, you know, put your back under load and strengthen your back up and all that sort of thing. And it was just, it had nothing to do with it. There was just other things that I was doing or not doing in other exercises that would put a strain on my back that I never would have thought of. No one ever tells you about. And just by, as you said, just activating some glutes on certain things and doing some other couple of things of my lats and stuff and things, it's just bang. All of a sudden, it's like, I just finished training and my back doesn't hurt. That's awesome.
Yeah, and you can give up making your body wrong.
Yeah.
And invalidating the way that it's been operating and what you're experiencing in your body. Because it's the same with nutrition. It's like, you know, people who gain weight and they come and see us, they think that there's something wrong with them. No, your body's done exactly what it's evolved to do. It's, you know, and given the nutritional environment that you've had it in. So structurally, how our body moves, etc., and those various patterns is all based on survival. Your brain's just put you in certain movement patterns to survive certain situations, and you just got stuck in them. And, you know, so it's being able to complete that aspect of the past, create a new future, and now you've got to learn how to perform appropriately inside of a new future, not one derived from the past. So, you know, the whole thing's really coming together the way that I've always dreamed it, you know, too. In fact, even better. And why? Because, I'm learning to trust and have people way smarter than me contribute as well, and that's happening at an accelerated pace. So the more that we generate, the more of the outcomes that are being pumped out, the more the experts are wanting to come and participate in what we're up to. So that's just extraordinarily exciting.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said to you the other day. What's amazed me about you the whole time is just the relentless pursuit of what you could see in your head as wanting to happen. And regardless of all the walls that get put up or the blockages of people not doing what they said they were going to do, or, some people just, they weren't interested unless there was something in it for them. And it's just, I mean, you can see the difference now when it's just become about other people, then it's all just fallen into place. And I think I said to Glenn from the UK, the guy I'm coaching in the UK, which is, relevant to your shirt, on the Miyagi-Do shirt, as big as
I buy these shirts. I mean, they're just
as taken off again with Cobra Kai and the original film. And there's so much gold in that. And I remember you sent Joe to watch Cobra Kai or the Karate Kid as a.
I know, that's our homework. Yeah.
I said to Glenn on the Chewing the Fat call, it's just like I learned a long time ago just to give up whatever I've got going on, get myself out of the way, and just do whatever you say. And shit seems to work out okay. And it's been doing that so far. So thank you.
Yeah. Pleasure. That's exactly what I do with my coaches. Yeah. And I have coaches that guide me, that I listen to, and I let them kick my butt. And I really create for myself a context, not of what can I get out of it. And so I'm never judging the coaching. I just keep taking it on. Why? I create a context called, it's my job to ensure my coach experiences winning in working with me. So again, my focus is on their experience of working with me. And I know that if I'm accomplishing stuff and having breakthroughs and pushing myself and coming to them and being in communication and not complaining, but coming to them with commitments that I want to, take on, or barriers that I'm committed to working through, it really leaves the coach with an experience of being up to something for themselves. And guess what? You get the best coaching out of them that way as well.
Yeah.
And you do that with coaches, you can do that with doctors, any kind of consultant. If you take on that they too are your customer, another way to language that is managing up, right? So it's not just unidirectional and you're just taking all the time. It's like, what can you contribute back in a way that empowers them so you then further benefit from it? So, there's much for us all to learn. And, I just want for people to have access to all of this where, they can see it would make a difference. We're here to contribute to that. So, in the next one, I think we should keep doing these more regularly. It's been a while. This has been fun. I'll be able to update more on the COVID stuff that we're doing. And so, I'm putting together something that I think I've been at work on it for 2 years. So, and I think I'm just at the precipice of a major breakthrough, and I'll find out next week, and hopefully I can share that with everyone then.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. I hope you all got something out of that. I can't wait for next week when we hear from Dean talking to Emma, who's just a bundle of joy, really. She's great. I can't wait for her to tell her story too. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again shortly on Simplr Health's Chewing the Fat. See you guys.